The Christmas lights on my mother's house always looked like they were trying too hard. Every year, she'd spend an entire weekend in early December draping them across every surface: the roof, the porch railings, even the mailbox. White lights mixed with colored ones in a way that had no rhyme or reason, just excess. As I pulled into the driveway that Christmas Eve, I sat in my car for a moment, watching those lights blink in their chaotic rhythm, and I thought, this is exactly like this family. Too much of everything except what actually matters. My name is Noelle. Yes, like Christmas. My mother thought it was adorable when I was born 3 days after the holiday 32 years ago. She told everyone it was fate, that I was her little Christmas miracle. What she didn't tell people was that by the time I was 10, she'd forgotten my birthday entirely most years, folding it into the general chaos of the holiday season like it didn't deserve its own day. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. And honesty is something I've learned to value more than almost anything else. Because I grew up in a house where the truth was optional, where perceptions mattered more than reality, and where love was something you had to earn by being exactly who they wanted you to be. I grabbed the bottle of wine from my passenger seat, something expensive that I knew my mother wouldn't appreciate, and headed toward the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open, and there was my sister, Veronica. She stood in the doorway wearing a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Her honey blonde hair curled perfectly, her makeup flawless even though it was 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve and we were just having family dinner. She looked me up and down with that expression I knew so well, the one that managed to communicate both pity and superiority in a single glance. "Noelle," she said, like my name was a sigh. "You made it." I said I would, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Well, you know how you are. Always working, never making time for family." She stepped aside to let me in, and I caught the scent of her perfume, something floral and expensive that I knew for a fact came from our mother's favorite boutique in town. "I make time," I said quietly, stepping into the familiar chaos of my childhood home. The living room was exactly as I remembered: too many decorations, too many throw pillows, too many framed photos of Veronica's achievements covering every surface. Her college graduation, her wedding 5 years ago, her and her husband Preston at various charity events. There were exactly 3 photos of me in the entire room. One from my high school graduation where I looked awkward and uncomfortable. One from a family vacation when I was 15, squinting into the sun. And just one from my college graduation, tucked in the back corner of a shelf, partially hidden behind a ceramic Christmas tree. "Mom's in the kitchen," Veronica said, already walking away from me. "Preston's in the den with Dad. I'd offer to take your coat, but..." She gestured vaguely at my simple black pea coat. As if it explained something, I hung it up myself on the coat rack by the door, the same spot I'd used since I was a child. Some things never changed. The kitchen smelled like ham and brown sugar and my mother's famous scalloped potatoes, the ones she made from a box but pretended were from scratch. She was standing at the stove, her back to me, wearing an apron that said "Merry Christmas, y'all" in glittery letters. Her hair was freshly dyed, that auburn color she'd been maintaining for the last decade, refusing to let the gray show through. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. She turned, and for just a second, just one brief, flickering second, I saw something in her face that might have been genuine happiness. But then it was gone, replaced by that practiced smile she wore like armor. "Noelle, oh honey, you're here." She came over and gave me one of those hugs that barely made contact, the kind where you pat someone's back twice and pull away. "How was the drive?" "Fine. Traffic wasn't too bad." "Well, you look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? You know, you work too much. All that stress isn't good for your skin." She touched my cheek briefly, and I resisted the urge to pull away. "You should use that moisturizer I sent you for your birthday. Did you get it?" "Yes, Mom, thank you." Because Veronica uses it religiously, and look at her skin, just glowing. She turned back to the stove, stirring something in a pot. "Did you see your sister? Doesn't she look beautiful?" "She does. That sweater is Loro Piana. Do you know how much those cost?" My mother didn't wait for an answer. "Preston bought it for her. Early Christmas present." That's the kind of man she found generous, successful, always thinking of her. I set the wine bottle on the counter, letting the comments slide off me like water off a raincoat. I'd learned that trick years ago. Don't react. Don't engage. Just let it wash over you and disappear. Can I help with anything? I asked. Oh, no, honey. Everything's almost ready. Why don't you go say hi to your father? He's in the den with Preston. They're watching some game. She said it like sports were beneath her. Though I knew she'd sat through countless games with my father over the years without complaint, I found my father exactly where I expected him, in his recliner, eyes fixed on the television screen where some college bowl game was playing. Preston sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing up at the TV and making comments that my father would respond to with grunts or one-word answers. "Hey, Dad," I said from the doorway. He looked up, and his face softened in a way my mother's never did. "Noelle, sweetheart, come here." He stood up and gave me a real hug, the kind that made me remember why I kept coming back to these gatherings even though they always left me feeling hollow. My father, Richard, had always been the gentle one, the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the battles between my mother and us girls, who kept his head down and his opinions to himself. I used to resent him for it when I was younger, for not standing up for me, for not telling my mother to stop the comparisons, the criticisms, the constant reminders that I wasn't quite measuring up to Veronica. But as I got older, I understood. He'd chosen peace over justice, and while part of me still wished he'd been different, I couldn't entirely blame him for it. "How've you been, kiddo?" he asked, his hand still on my shoulder. "Good, Dad. Really good." "Still working at that tech company?" "Yeah, still there." Preston looked up from his phone, finally acknowledging my presence. "Noelle, good to see you." He didn't stand up. He never did. Preston was the kind of man who believed his attention was a gift he bestowed on people, not something he owed them. "Preston," I said with a nod. "Still doing that analyst thing?" he asked, already looking back at his phone. "Data scientist," I corrected gently. "But yes, same company." Right. Sounds interesting." His tone made it clear he found it anything but interesting. My father sat back down in his recliner, and I took the love seat in the corner, my usual spot at these gatherings. We watched the game in silence for a few minutes, the kind of comfortable quiet that only existed in this room, in this configuration. The moment Veronica or my mother walked in, everything would change. The air would charge with expectation and judgment and unspoken competition. Dinner. My mother called from the kitchen. The dining room table was set like we were hosting royalty. The good china, the silver candlesticks, the cloth napkins that had to be ironed. The centerpiece was an elaborate arrangement of pine branches, red berries, and white roses that must have cost a fortune. My mother stood at the head of the table, surveying her work with visible pride. "Everyone sit," she commanded, gesturing to our assigned seats. The hierarchy was clear in the seating arrangement, as it had been for years. My mother at the head of the table, my father at the foot, Veronica and Preston on one side, in the seats closest to my mother, me on the other side alone, closest to my father. The empty chair beside me felt like a statement. As we began passing dishes around, my mother launched into the script she followed every year, asking questions that weren't really questions, making observations that were really judgments, steering the conversation like a conductor leading an orchestra toward a predetermined conclusion. "Preston, tell us about the firm," she said, serving herself a modest portion of green beans. "I heard you made partner this year." Preston smiled, that self-satisfied smile of someone who'd never questioned whether he deserved his success. "Senior partner, actually. As of October, senior partner." My mother pressed her hand to her chest like she might faint from pride. "At 34. Richard, did you hear that? Senior partner." My father nodded, chewing his ham. "Congratulations, son. It's quite an achievement," Veronica added, placing her hand over Preston's. "Not many people make senior partner at his age. The firm has over 200 attorneys. I can imagine the salary that comes with that," my mother said, not even trying to be subtle. "I bet you two are very comfortable." "We do all right," Preston said with false modesty. I cut my ham into small pieces, focusing on my plate. This was the part I dreaded every year, the bragging session disguised as conversation, where Veronica and Preston would detail their successes while my mother oohed and awed, and I would sit silently, knowing that anything I shared would be minimized or dismissed. And Veronica, my mother continued, turning to my sister with stars in her eyes, "Tell Noelle your big news. She doesn't know yet." Veronica's face lit up in a way that would have seemed genuine to anyone who didn't know her. But I knew her. I knew that smile was calculated, practiced in the mirror, designed for maximum impact. "Well," she said, drawing out the word, "Preston and I just closed on a house." My mother clapped her hands together. "Not just a house, a beautiful house. Show her the pictures, Veronica. Show her." Veronica pulled out her phone with the eagerness of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. She swiped through photos, holding the screen toward me. The house was impressive, I had to admit. A 2-story colonial in Riverside Estates, the gated community on the north side of town where all the doctors and lawyers lived. White columns, black shutters, a perfectly manicured lawn. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, Veronica narrated. Chef's kitchen with marble countertops. Master suite with a sitting area and a spa bathroom. Finished basement. 3-car garage. "It's stunning," I said, because it was, isn't it? My mother beamed like she'd personally built the house herself. "They got such a good deal on it too. The previous owners were desperate to sell." "What did you say you got them down to, Preston?" 78500, he said, cutting his ham. "Listed at 8500, my mother gasped. "Such a steal. A house like that in a neighborhood like that. You two are so smart with money, so responsible." The words hung in the air like a thick fog. Responsible. It was one of my mother's favorite words when talking about Veronica, and one she conspicuously never used when talking about me. "The mortgage payment is very reasonable," Veronica added, scrolling through more photos. "And with Preston's new salary, we'll be able to pay it down quickly. We're thinking of renovating the kitchen in a year or 2. The appliances are nice, but I'd really love a sub-zero refrigerator." "You deserve it," my mother said firmly. "You both work so hard. You've earned this." I took a sip of water, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest. This was the pattern. This was always the pattern. Veronica's achievements were victories to be celebrated, proof of her worth, evidence of her superior life choices. My achievements, when they were acknowledged at all, were met with skepticism or concern. "It's a big step," my father said, looking at Veronica. "Buying a house. That's a serious commitment." "We're ready for it," Preston said confidently. "We've been planning this for a while. It's time to settle down, build equity, start thinking about the future." "Children," my mother nearly shouted. "Are you two thinking about children? Because that house would be perfect for a family. That neighborhood has excellent schools." Veronica laughed, that tinkling laugh she'd perfected. "Maybe in a year or 2, Mom. We want to enjoy the house first, do some traveling. Preston wants to take me to Italy next spring." "Italy." My mother looked like she might cry from joy. "Oh, how wonderful." "Veronica, your life is it's exactly how it should be. You've done everything right." And there it was, the unspoken comparison, the invisible measuring stick that I'd been held up against my entire life and found wanting. I continued eating, letting the conversation flow around me like I was a rock in a stream, solid, unmoved, separate from the current. "Noelle," my mother said suddenly, and I looked up to find her staring at me with that expression I knew too well. Concern mixed with disappointment, wrapped in a thin veneer of maternal interest. "You've been so quiet. What's going on with you?" "Not much," I said carefully. "Work's been busy." "Work," she repeated, like it was a bad word. "Always work with you. Don't you ever want more than just work?" "I like my job, Mom, but is it enough?" She set down her fork, giving me her full attention now. "I mean, it's fine to have a career. Veronica has a career too. She runs the foundation, manages all those fundraisers. But she also has a life, a home, a husband." "I have a life," I said quietly. "Do you?" My mother pressed. "When was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you even mentioned someone you were interested in?" "Mom," my father said softly, A gentle warning. She ignored him. I'm just saying, Noelle. You're 32 years old. That's not old, but it's not young either. If you want a family, if you want the things that matter in life, you need to start making different choices. What things matter? I asked, unable to stop myself. You know what I mean. A partnership, a real home, roots. Look at your sister, she has all of that. She made it a priority. Veronica jumped in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Mom's right, Noelle. I worry about you sometimes. You're always alone in that little apartment, working all the time. Don't you get lonely? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the smirk hiding behind her concerned expression. She was enjoying this. She always enjoyed this, the moments when my mother would point out everything I was supposedly lacking, everything I'd failed to achieve according to their narrow definition of success. I'm not lonely, I said calmly. But when will you settle down? My mother asked, her voice rising slightly. When will you buy a house, find someone, start building a real life? Your sister just bought this beautiful home. And you're still. She gestured vaguely at me, as if my entire existence could be summed up in that dismissive wave. The table fell silent. My father looked uncomfortable, studying his green beans like they contained the secrets of the universe. Preston checked his phone, pretending not to listen. Veronica watched me with barely contained glee, waiting for me to stumble, to defend myself, to prove once again that I was the lesser daughter. I smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It wasn't dramatic. It was just a small, quiet smile that came from somewhere deep inside me, from the place where I'd been storing all my secrets, all my victories, all the proof that I was exactly who I wanted to be and had achieved exactly what I'd set out to achieve. What's funny? My mother asked, her brow furrowing. Nothing, I said, taking another bite of ham. This is delicious, Mom. She blinked at me, confused by my lack of reaction. She'd expected me to argue, to defend myself, to make excuses. That's what I'd always done before. But not tonight. I'm serious, Noelle, she continued, unable to let it go. You need to think about your future. You can't just work forever. Life is about more than a paycheck. I know, I said simply. Then why don't you do something about it? Veronica leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. I mean, it's not that hard to meet people. Have you tried dating apps? I have some friends who could set you up. I'm good, I said. Are you, though? My mother asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're stuck, like you're afraid to take the next step. Maybe you're scared of commitment? Or scared of failing? I set down my fork carefully, folded my hands in my lap, and looked at my mother directly. I'm not scared of anything. Then prove it, Veronica said, her smirk fully visible now. Do something with your life. Buy a house. Find a partner. Show us you're capable of more than just work. The challenge hung in the air between us. This was the moment they expected me to crack, to lash out, to reveal how much their words hurt me. This was the script we'd followed for years. They'd push, I'd react, they'd comfort me with patronizing advice, and nothing would change. But I'd changed. Over the past 3 years, I'd changed in ways they couldn't see and wouldn't understand. I'd made choices they didn't know about. I'd achieved things I'd never told them. I'd built a life that was mine, completely and utterly mine, without their input or approval or even their knowledge. And tonight, sitting at this table, listening to them judge me and find me wanting, I realized something. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. I didn't need to explain. I didn't need their validation. I just needed to decide whether it was finally time to show them the truth. You know what? I said, my voice calm and steady. You're right. My mother blinked. Yes, I should have bought a house by now. I should have settled down. I should have done all those things you think are so important. Veronica's smirk widened. So you admit it? You've been wasting your time. I didn't say that, I replied. I just said you're right that I should have bought a house by now. Well, it's not too late, my mother said, her tone softening now that she thought she'd gotten through to me. You could start looking. With your job, you probably have a decent salary. Maybe you could afford something small. A condo, perhaps. Or a townhouse in one of the newer developments. Maybe, I said, picking up my fork again. I could help you look, Veronica offered, her voice saccharine sweet. I know the area really well now. After all our house hunting, I could show you what's in your price range. That's nice of you, I said. My father cleared his throat. Noelle's smart. I'm sure when she's ready, she'll figure it out. Ready? My mother laughed. Richard, she's 32. How much more ready does she need to be? Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. You just have to jump in and do it. Right, Veronica? Absolutely, Veronica agreed. Preston and I could have waited, kept saving, waited for the perfect time. But we decided to just go for it. And look how well it worked out. I nodded, continuing to eat my dinner while they talked around me, about me, like I was a project they were collectively trying to fix. Let them have this moment, I thought. Let them believe they've identified my problem and offered their solution. It didn't matter. After dinner, we moved to the living room for dessert, my mother's famous apple pie, which she also made from a box but would never admit to. Veronica showed more photos of the house on her iPad this time, walking everyone through a virtual tour, pointing out where they'd hang artwork, where they'd put furniture, how they'd decorate the nursery when the time came. Drop your city in the comments, let's see how far this story travels. My mother sat enraptured, offering suggestions and praise in equal measure. Preston added commentary about the investment value of the property, the neighborhood's appreciation rate, their plans for future renovations. My father ate his pie quietly, occasionally nodding but mostly staying out of it, and I sat in my corner of the couch, the same spot I'd occupied since childhood. And I thought about my own house, the one I'd bought 2 years ago, the one none of them knew about, the 4-bedroom craftsman on 2 acres of land overlooking Lake Mitchell, 45 minutes north of the city. The one with the wraparound porch and the stone fireplace and the chef's kitchen with the sub-zero refrigerator that Veronica wanted so badly. The one I'd bought in cash, no mortgage, after working 70-hour weeks for 5 years and saving every penny I could. After turning my small tech startup investment into something worth celebrating. After proving to myself, if no one else, that I was exactly as capable as I'd always believed I was. I hadn't told them because. Why would I? What would it change? My mother would find something wrong with it. The location would be too far. The style wouldn't be right. The neighborhood wouldn't be prestigious enough. Veronica would find ways to diminish it, to point out what her house had that mine didn't. They'd make it about them somehow. Turn my achievement into another referendum on my life choices. So I'd kept it to myself. I'd furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing every piece with intention. I'd planted a garden last spring. I'd adopted a dog from the shelter, a golden retriever named Maple, who greeted me every evening with pure, uncomplicated joy. I'd created a life there that was peaceful and intentional and completely my own. And on weekends, I'd sit on my porch with my coffee, watching the sunrise over the lake, and I'd feel something I'd never felt growing up in this house full of Christmas lights and judgment. I'd feel content. Noelle, are you even listening? My mother's voice cut through my thoughts. Sorry, what? I was saying that Veronica and Preston are having a housewarming party next month. You should come. You could see the house in person. I'll try, I said. You'll try? Veronica repeated. Come on, Noelle. Make an effort. This is a big deal for us. I know it is. Then be there, my mother insisted. Family shows up for family. That's what people do when they care about each other. I met her eyes, and for just a moment, I wanted to say it. I wanted to tell her about all the times I'd shown up and she hadn't noticed. All the times I'd achieved something and she'd minimized it. All the times I'd needed her to see me, really see me, and she'd been too busy looking at Veronica to notice I was even in the room. But I didn't, because what would be the point? I'll be there, I said instead. We stayed for another hour, making small talk about nothing important. Veronica and Preston left first, with a flurry of hugs and promises to get together soon. I helped my mother clean up the kitchen while my father dozed in his recliner, the TV playing some Christmas movie he'd seen 100 times. Thank you for coming tonight, my mother said as we loaded the dishwasher. I know you're busy with work, but it means a lot to have my girls here for Christmas. Of course, Mom. She paused, a plate in her hand, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You know I worry about you, right? That's all this is. I just want you to be happy. I am happy, I said quietly. Are you? She set the plate down. Because you seem, I don't know, distant. Like you're not really here even when you're here. Maybe because I learned a long time ago that being here, really being here, meant opening myself up to constant criticism and comparison. Maybe because I built walls to protect myself, and now those walls are so sturdy that even genuine concern can't get through them. I'm just tired, I said instead. She patted my arm. Get some rest. And think about what I said, okay? About settling down. About building a life. You don't want to wake up at 40 and realize you've missed your chance. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything else. When I finally got into my car and pulled out of the driveway, I sat at the end of the street for a moment, engine running, watching the house in my rearview mirror. All those lights blinking their chaotic pattern, trying so hard to look perfect from the outside while the inside remained exactly the same as it had always been. I turned the car toward the highway and headed north, away from the city, away from my mother's house and Veronica's perfect life and all the expectations I'd never managed to meet. 45 minutes later, I pulled into my own driveway. The motion sensor lights came on, illuminating the front of my house, my beautiful, perfect secret house. Maple barked from inside, her tail already wagging, and I felt something in my chest loosen. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at my home. It wasn't flashy like Veronica's house. It wasn't in a gated community with a prestigious address. But it was mine. Every square foot of it was mine, bought with money I'd earned, decorated with things I'd chosen, filled with peace I'd cultivated. And next month, at Veronica's housewarming party, surrounded by all their friends and my mother's bragging and their shared certainty that they had life figured out while I was still floundering, I was going to tell them, not to hurt them, not to get revenge, not even to prove anything, but because I was tired of pretending, tired of being invisible, tired of letting them define my worth based on their limited understanding of what success looked like. I was going to tell them. And then I was going to walk away from their shocked faces and their questions and their inevitable attempts to diminish what I'd done, and I was going to come home to my house, to Maple, to my peaceful life, and I was going to be free. The month between Christmas and Veronica's housewarming party moved like cold honey, slow, thick, inevitable. I went to work every day, managed my team of data scientists, attended meetings where I explained complex algorithms to executives who pretended to understand. I went home every evening to Maple and my lake house, cooked dinner in my chef's kitchen, read books by my stone fireplace, and prepared myself for what was coming. I didn't plan what I would say. I didn't rehearse some dramatic revelation. I just knew that I was done hiding, done shrinking myself to make other people comfortable, done pretending that their version of success was the only one that mattered. The invitation to the housewarming party arrived via text from Veronica, a group message to the family. Party at our new house. Saturday, January 25th, p.m., casual dress. Can't wait to show everyone our new home. Please RSVP. My mother responded within minutes, we'll be there. So proud of you both. My father's response came an hour later. Looking forward to it. I waited until that evening, sitting on my porch with Maple at my feet, watching the sun set over the lake. Before I typed, I'll be there, Veronica's response was immediate. Great. Can't wait to see you. Maybe you'll get some inspiration for your own place someday. The emoji made me smile. Even her digital communication carried that edge of superiority, that gentle condescension that had colored our relationships since we were children. The day of the party arrived cold and bright. The kind of January day where the sun shines hard but offers no warmth. I chose my outfit carefully, not too formal, not too casual. A cashmere sweater the color of deep burgundy, dark jeans, boots. I wanted to look put together without looking like I'd tried too hard. Before I left, I stood in my master bedroom, the one with the sitting area and the view of the lake, and I allowed myself a moment of doubt. Was this petty? Was this revenge? Was I doing this for the right reasons? But then I remembered Christmas dinner. I remembered my mother's voice saying, when will you settle down? I remembered Veronica's smirk when she asked, don't you get lonely? This wasn't revenge. This was honesty. And if honesty happened to also be satisfying, well, that wasn't my fault. I arrived at Veronica's house at exactly 4:15 p.m., late enough to not be the first one there, early enough to not be conspicuously late. The circular driveway was already full of cars, and I could hear voices and laughter floating from the backyard. The front door was open, and a sign in Veronica's perfect handwriting directed everyone to come around to the back. I followed a stone pathway that curved around the side of the house, past perfectly trimmed hedges and a garden area that was clearly professionally maintained. The backyard was impressive: a large patio with an outdoor kitchen, a fire pit surrounded by Adirondack chairs, a lawn that stretched back to a privacy fence. There were at least 30 people there, clustered in groups, drinks in hand, admiring the house and property. I spotted my mother first. She was standing near the outdoor kitchen, gesturing enthusiastically to a group of women I vaguely recognized as her friends from church. My father stood slightly apart, nursing a beer, looking uncomfortable in the way he always did at social gatherings. Veronica was in the center of it all, of course, holding court like a queen. Preston stood beside her, his arm around her waist, both of them glowing with the satisfaction of people who believed they'd arrived at the destination everyone should be racing toward. Noelle. My mother spotted me and waved me over with the urgency of someone flagging down a lifeboat. "Come here, I want you to meet everyone." I made my way through the crowd, accepting a glass of wine from a server, an actual hired server. I noted and plastered on a pleasant expression, "Everyone. This is my youngest daughter, Noelle," my mother announced to the group of women. "She works in tech, computers and such, data science," I corrected gently. "Right. Data science. Very technical, very modern." She said it the way someone might describe a peculiar hobby they don't quite understand. "She's still single, still working on finding her way," one of the women, wearing too much makeup and a sympathetic expression, patted my arm. "Don't worry, dear. The right person will come along when you least expect it." "That's what I keep telling her," my mother agreed. "But you know how career-focused young women are these days. They forget that life is about balance." I sipped my wine, letting the conversation flow around me. This was exactly what I'd expected: my mother using me as a cautionary tale, a what not to do example in contrast to Veronica's obvious success. "Noelle." Veronica appeared at my elbow, her smile wide and artificial. "You made it! Come on, I'll give you the tour. You have to see the inside of the house." She grabbed my arm and pulled me away from my mother's group, leading me toward the back door. As we walked, she whispered, "Mom's been talking about you all afternoon, telling everyone about how you're still finding yourself or whatever." "It's kind of embarrassing." "For whom?" I asked. She laughed, missing the edge in my voice entirely. "Just come see the house. Maybe it'll inspire you to make some changes in your own life." The inside of the house was as impressive as the photos had promised. Hardwood floors throughout, high ceilings, crown molding, designer light fixtures. Veronica narrated every room like a museum docent, pointing out the cost of the chandelier in the dining room, the Italian tile in the guest bathroom, the custom built-ins in the study, and this, she said, throwing open the double doors to the master suite, "is our bedroom. Isn't it gorgeous?" It was gorgeous. The kind of room you'd see in a magazine spread about luxury living. A California king bed with a tufted headboard, matching nightstands that probably cost more than my first car, a sitting area with a velvet love seat, and through another doorway, a bathroom that was bigger than my first apartment. "The closet is through here," Veronica continued, pulling me through the bathroom to a walk-in closet that was, indeed, the size of a small bedroom. Her clothes hung in color-coordinated rows, her shoes displayed on built-in shelves like works of art. "It's beautiful," I said, because it was. "Thank you." She stood in the center of her closet, arms crossed, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You know, Noelle, I didn't show you all of this to make you feel bad. I know. I want you to see what's possible. When you make the right choices, when you prioritize the important things, this is what you can have. A real home, a real life, security." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the familiar twist of jealousy or inadequacy. I just felt sad. Sad that she needed to diminish me to feel good about herself. Sad that our relationship had always been a competition I'd never agreed to enter. You're right, I said quietly. This is what's possible. She smiled, triumphant, thinking she'd finally gotten through to me. Good, I'm glad you're listening. Now come on, people are gathering outside. Preston's about to make a toast. We returned to the backyard where the crowd had grown larger. More friends, more colleagues, more witnesses to Veronica and Preston's success story. Someone handed me a fresh glass of champagne as Preston climbed onto the patio, raising his glass. Thank you all for coming, he began, his lawyer voice carrying across the yard. Veronica and I are so grateful to share this moment with you. This house represents years of hard work, careful planning, and smart decisions. It's the foundation of the life we're building together. The crowd murmured appreciatively. We want to thank our family especially, Preston continued, gesturing to where my parents stood. Diane and Richard, thank you for raising such an incredible woman. Your support and guidance made this all possible. My mother beamed, her hand pressed to her chest in that gesture she always made when she was overcome with pride. My father smiled, nodding, one arm around my mother's shoulders. To new beginnings, Preston raised his glass higher. To smart investments, to building equity, and to the American dream. Hear, hear, the crowd chorused, glasses raised. As everyone drank, my mother made her way to the center of the patio, and I knew what was coming. She couldn't help herself. She never could. I'm just so proud, she announced, not quite loudly enough to be rude but loud enough that everyone's attention shifted to her. My daughter Veronica has always been so responsible, so focused. She and Preston are the perfect example of what happens when you make good choices. Veronica stood beside her, soaking in the praise like sunshine. They saved properly, my mother continued. They planned carefully. They didn't waste their 20s on frivolous things. They invested in their future. She paused, and I saw her eyes scan the crowd until they found me. I wish my other daughter would take notes. The words hung in the air, and I felt the collective discomfort of the crowd, that awkward moment when someone says something unnecessarily cruel in public and no one quite knows how to react. Mom, my father said softly. A warning. She ignored him, warming to her topic. I mean, Noelle's a smart girl. She has a good job. But she's 32 and still living in that little apartment, still acting like she's 25. No house, no relationship. No plans to settle down. She shook her head, that mixture of disappointment and concern that I'd seen so many times. When will you grow up, honey? When will you get serious about life? The backyard had gone quiet except for the awkward shuffling of feet and clearing of throats. Veronica tried to look sympathetic, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Preston checked his watch like he had somewhere else to be. My father stared at the ground, and I felt something inside me click into place, that final piece of the puzzle, that last bit of permission I'd been waiting for. I set my champagne glass down on a nearby table. I took a deep breath, and I smiled. You're right, Mom, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent yard. I should have settled down by now. I should have bought a house. I should have taken those steps. My mother's expression shifted to something almost like relief, like she'd finally broken through my defenses. But the thing is, I continued, taking a step forward. I already did. Veronica's smile faltered. What? I bought a house, I said clearly. 2 years ago. The silence deepened, became something thick and substantial. My mother blinked rapidly, her brain trying to process information that didn't fit her narrative. What are you talking about? She asked. You live in that apartment on Maple Street. I did, I said. Until 2 years ago, when I bought a 4-bedroom Craftsman on 2 acres overlooking Lake Mitchell. You... What? Veronica's voice had gone high and thin. I bought a house, I repeated. Paid cash. No mortgage. Moved in June of 2023. I've been living there ever since. My father's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Noelle? It's true, Dad. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Why? My mother asked, and for the first time in my memory, she sounded genuinely confused rather than judgmental. Why wouldn't you tell us something like that? I looked at her, And all the years of minimized achievements and dismissive comments and constant comparisons rose up in my throat like bile. But I swallowed them back down and kept my voice calm. Because I wanted something that was just mine, I said. Something you couldn't compare to Veronica's choices. Something you couldn't find wrong with. Something that existed outside of your judgment. That's not fair, my mother said, her voice shaking slightly. I've never, Mom. I held up my hand, stopping her. You just told a yard full of strangers that I'm not grown up, that I'm not serious about life, that I need to take notes from Veronica. You did that without knowing anything about my life, my choices, or what I've accomplished. Veronica found her voice. If this is true, and I'm not sure I believe it, why keep it a secret? Why let us think you were still in that apartment? Because this, I gestured around the yard, at all the watching faces, this is exactly what I was avoiding. This moment where my life becomes a spectacle, where my choices get held up for examination and judgment. Where is this house? Preston asked, his lawyer instincts kicking in, looking for holes in my story. 45 minutes north, I said. Riverside Road, the craftsman with the wraparound porch and the stone chimney. Maybe you've driven past it, that house. One of Veronica's friends spoke up, a woman I vaguely recognized from college. The one with the lake view? That sold for like, God, what was it? 65000, I supplied. Below market because the sellers wanted someone who'd appreciate it, not just flip it for profit. And you paid. Cash? Preston's voice dripped with skepticism. Yes. How? Veronica demanded. How could you possibly afford that? I worked. I said simply. I worked 70-hour weeks for 5 years. I saved everything I could. I invested wisely. And when that tech startup I consulted for went public, the stock options I'd taken instead of higher hourly rates turned out to be worth considerably more than anyone expected. My mother's face had gone pale. You never mentioned any startup. You never asked about my work, Mom. Not really. You'd ask if I was still at that tech company and then change the subject before I could answer. That's not. She started, then stopped, because we both knew it was true. I don't understand, Veronica said, and she genuinely looked confused. Why would you keep this secret? Why wouldn't you want us to know? Wouldn't you want Mom to be proud of you? And there it was, the question that revealed everything about how Veronica saw the world. She genuinely couldn't understand why someone wouldn't want to broadcast their achievements, wouldn't want to turn their life into a competition, wouldn't want their worth validated by parental approval. I didn't need Mom to be proud of me, I said quietly. I needed to be proud of myself. And I am. My father set down his beer and walked over to me, his face serious. Can I see it? I looked at him, surprised. The house? Yes. Can I see your house? Something in my chest cracked open. Of course, Dad. Now? He asked. Richard. My mother protested. We can't just leave. This is Veronica's party. I want to see my daughter's house, my father said firmly, and I realized I'd never heard him use that tone with my mother before. I want to see what she's built for herself. I'll take you, I said. Anyone who wants to come can follow me. I expected my mother to protest more. Expected Veronica to find a reason why everyone should stay. Expected the crowd to remain planted in the safety of the party they'd come for. But something shifted in the air. I'd like to see it too, one of my mother's church friends said, if that's all right. I remember that house. Someone else chimed in. My wife and I looked at it when it was for sale. It's stunning. Wait, Veronica said, her voice rising slightly. This is my party. We haven't even served the food yet, but people were already moving. Pulled by curiosity or awkwardness or the simple human instinct to bear witness to unexpected moments. My father was already heading toward his car. Noelle, my mother said, grabbing my arm. Her fingers dug in just slightly too hard. Is this some kind of joke? Some kind of revenge? I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. Her makeup was perfect as always, but her eyes were confused and hurt and angry all at once. No, Mom, I said gently, removing her hand. This is just me, finally being honest. I bought a house. I built a life. I did it all without your approval or guidance, and I'm happy. That's not revenge. That's just the truth. I turned and walked toward my car, my father already waiting by his sedan, Maple visible in my back window, tail wagging. Behind me, I could hear Veronica trying to convince people to stay, my mother saying something about dinner being ready soon, Preston making excuses about the traffic, but when I pulled out of the driveway, there were 7 cars behind me. 7 cars full of people who wanted to see the truth I'd been hiding. The drive north felt longer with an audience, but I took my time, let them follow at their own pace. When I finally turned onto Riverside Road and my house came into view, I heard someone honk, not in anger, but in surprise or appreciation. I pulled into my driveway, and the caravan pulled in behind me, parking along the curved drive and the street. My father was out of his car first, standing in front of my house, his hand shading his eyes against the late afternoon sun. Just staring. "Noelle," he said when I reached him. His voice was thick. "Honey, this is home." I finished. "This is home, Dad." Maple bounded out when I opened the door, immediately going to my father, who bent down to pet her. "And who's this?" "This is Maple. I adopted her last year." My mother's car pulled up, and she got out slowly, her eyes sweeping over the house, the property, the lake visible beyond. She opened her mouth twice before words came out. "You've been living here for 2 years," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Alone?" "With Maple, all this space, all this house, just for you?" "Yes, Mom, just for me." People were getting out of their cars, exclaiming over the view, the porch, the gardens I'd planted. My father was already walking around the side of the house, exploring. Someone asked if they could see inside. "Of course," I said, unlocking the front door. They filed in, these strangers and semi-strangers, into my sanctuary. I watched them take in the exposed beams in the living room, the stone fireplace, the built-in bookshelves full of actual books I'd actually read. I led them through to the kitchen, and I heard someone gasp. "Is that a Sub-Zero?" my mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "And a wolf range," I added. "I like to cook." We moved through the house, the formal dining room I'd converted into an office, the guest bedrooms I'd carefully furnished, the master's suite with its view of the lake. People murmured appreciation, asked questions about when I'd bought it, how I'd found it, what it was like living out here. My father found me on the back porch, standing at the railing, looking out at the lake that was turning gold in the setting sun. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I turned to look at him. "For what?" "For not knowing. For not seeing." He gripped the railing, his knuckles white. "For not standing up for you more when you were growing up. For letting your mother. For letting things be the way they were." "Dad, no. Let me finish." He took a shaky breath. "I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself that you were strong, that you could handle it, that the comparisons weren't really hurting you. But they were, and I should have stopped it." "It's okay," I said. "It's not." He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. "You bought this house and didn't tell us. That means we failed you somewhere. That means we made you feel like you couldn't share your joy with us." "I wasn't trying to punish you," I said. "I just needed something that was mine. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly. "I do now." My mother appeared in the doorway, and my father and I both turned. She looked smaller somehow, standing there in my house, surrounded by evidence of a life she'd known nothing about. "It's beautiful," she said finally. "You're home." "It's really beautiful, Noelle. Thank you." She stepped out onto the porch, standing on my other side, the 3 of us looking out at the lake. "Why didn't you tell me?" I could have lied. I could have softened it. But I was done with that. Because every achievement I've ever shared with you, you found a way to minimize. Because you've spent my entire life comparing me to Veronica and finding me lacking. Because I wanted one thing, just one thing that existed outside of your judgment. She flinched. "I never meant, Mom." I turned to face her. "You literally stood in Veronica's backyard today and told a crowd of people that I wasn't grown up, that I needed to take notes from her. You did that without knowing anything about my life." "I worry about you," she said, and tears were running down her cheeks now. "I just want you to be happy." "I am happy," I said firmly, "but not in the ways you think I should be. Not on the timeline you've decided is correct. I'm happy in my own way, In my own time, in my own life, I've been a terrible mother to you." She whispered. "No," I said, "because despite everything, it was true. You haven't been terrible. You've been imperfect. You've played favorites. You've been critical and judgmental, and you've hurt me more times than I can count. But you've also been there. You've loved me in the ways you knew how. It just wasn't enough." She sobbed once, a sharp sound, and my father put his arm around her. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "I don't either," I admitted. "But maybe we start with honesty, with seeing each other as we actually are, not as we wish we were." Behind us, I could hear people starting to leave, calling out thank yous and goodbyes, their voices echoing through my house. The impromptu tour was ending. Reality was settling back in. My mother wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. "Veronica is going to be so upset." "Probably," I agreed. "You did this on purpose," she said, but there was no accusation in it, just recognition. "Not exactly," I said. "I didn't plan to tell you today. But when you said those things, when you minimized my entire life in front of all those people, I realized I was done hiding, done shrinking myself, done letting you write the narrative of who I am." My father squeezed my shoulder. "We should go. Let you have your evening." "Okay." My mother hugged me, and it was the most genuine hug she'd given me in years. No air kisses, no pat-pat pull away. Just a real, tight, desperate hug. "I'm sorry," she whispered into my hair. "I'm so sorry, Noelle." "I know, Mom." They left, and then it was just me and Maple in my house. I stood on the back porch as the sun finished setting, painting the lake in shades of purple and pink, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not vindication, but relief. The secret was out. The truth was told. Whatever came next would be built on honesty instead of assumptions. My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. "That was cruel." I typed back. "That was honest." Her response came quickly. "You humiliated me at my own party." "I didn't come there to humiliate you. I came because you invited me." Mom made it about me. I just corrected the record. The little dots appeared and disappeared 3 times before her next message came through. "Preston thinks you've been lying to us for 2 years. "I have been," I wrote back. "By omission. Because telling you felt worse than hiding." "I don't understand you." "I know. That's part of the problem." The conversation ended there. She didn't respond, and I didn't push it. We would talk again eventually at holidays, at family gatherings, at all the obligatory moments that siblings share. But maybe it would be different now. Maybe we would finally be honest with each other instead of playing the roles we'd been assigned, or maybe nothing would change. Maybe my mother would go back to comparing us, Veronica would go back to smirking, and I would go back to being the lesser daughter in their story. But it wouldn't matter as much now, because I'd told the truth. I'd stood up for myself. I'd stopped letting them define my worth. I went inside and made dinner in my beautiful kitchen, feeding Maple and putting on music and moving through my evening routine. Later, I sat by my fireplace with a book, Maple snoring softly at my feet, and I felt something I'd been chasing my whole life without knowing it. I felt enough. Not perfect, not superior, not worthy by someone else's standards, just enough. Exactly as I was. The next morning, my father called. "Can I come visit? See the house again in daylight?" "Of course, Dad. Anytime." "Just me," he clarified. "Your mother needs some time to process. But I'd like to see it. Really see it. Hear about how you did it." He came that afternoon, and we walked the property together. I showed him the garden I'd planted, explained my investment strategy, told him about the dog training classes I'd taken Maple to. We stood on the dock I'd had installed last summer, watching the lake water lap at the posts. "I'm proud of you," he said finally. "I should have said that years ago. I should have said it more. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you, Noelle. Not because you bought this house, but because you became exactly who you wanted to be." I leaned my head on his shoulder, something I hadn't done since I was small. "Thanks, Dad. Your mother will come around," he said. "She's hurt right now, embarrassed. But she'll come around. She loves you. She just doesn't always know how to show it." I know. And Veronica and I will figure it out. Or we won't. Either way, I'll be okay. He squeezed my hand. Yes, you will be. Over the following weeks, things slowly shifted. My mother called, tentative conversations where she asked about my house, my life, my plans. She didn't apologize again, but she stopped making comparisons. She stopped pushing me to be more like Veronica. Veronica and I texted occasionally, brief exchanges that were carefully polite. The wounds were too fresh for real reconciliation, but we were both trying in our own ways. And me? I continued living my life, going to work, coming home to my house and my dog, having dinners with colleagues who'd become friends, dating casually when I felt like it, reading books on my porch, planting new sections of my garden. I stopped going to every family gathering. I showed up when I wanted to, when I had the emotional energy for it, and I stopped feeling guilty about the times I said no. 6 months after that Christmas party, Veronica called me. Not a text, an actual call. Hey, she said when I answered. Hey, are you busy? Just reading. What's up? She was quiet for a moment. I drove past your house today. I was up north for a charity event, and I took the long way home. I wanted to see it. Okay. It's really beautiful, Noelle. I mean, I saw it that day, but I wasn't really seeing it. But today I drove past and I really looked at it. And it's beautiful. Thank you. And I realized something. Her voice cracked slightly. I was jealous. I am jealous. Not of the house itself, but of how you did it. How you did it quietly, on your own terms, without needing anyone's validation. I didn't know what to say to that. Preston and I are drowning, she continued, words tumbling out now. The mortgage is more than we can really afford. We have to keep up appearances, keep hosting these parties, keep pretending everything is perfect. And it's exhausting. Veronica, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me, she said quickly. I made my choices. I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what you did differently. And I'm sorry. For all of it. For the Christmas dinner, for the party, for all the years of making you feel less than. You were never less than. You were just different. And I was too insecure to let that be okay. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Thank you for saying that. Can I come visit sometime? Really visit. Not like that circus day. Just me. Maybe just us two. I'd like that. I said, and I meant it. She did visit. A month later, we sat on my back porch with wine and watched the sunset. And we talked. Really talked. About our childhood. About Mom's favoritism. About the impossible standards we'd both been trying to meet in different ways. It didn't fix everything. Years of pain don't heal in one afternoon. But it was a start. As for my mother, she surprised me 6 months after the party incident. She called and asked if she could come stay for a weekend. Just me and you, she said. I'd like to get to know you better. The real you. She came. And it was awkward at first. We didn't know how to be together without the buffer of Dad or Veronica, without the familiar scripts we'd always followed. But slowly, over the course of that weekend, we found a rhythm. She helped me weed my garden. I taught her to use my espresso machine. We watched old movies and cooked meals together. And at night, sitting on the porch, she told me things she'd never shared before about her own mother, about the pressure she'd felt to be perfect, about the ways she'd failed and the regrets she carried. I don't know if I can undo the damage, she said on the last night. I don't know if we'll ever have the relationship we should have had. We can have a new relationship, I said. One built on who we actually are, not who we thought we should be. She cried then, and I held her hand, and we sat in the kind of silence that feels like healing. I'm not going to pretend that everything became perfect after that Christmas party. Life doesn't work that way. My mother still occasionally makes comments that sting. Veronica and I still have moments of tension. Family gatherings are still complicated. But something fundamental shifted that day when I stopped hiding, stopped shrinking, stopped letting other people's definitions of success determine my worth. I had built a life I loved, in a house I'd earned, surrounded by peace I'd cultivated. And I'd done it all without permission, without validation, without waiting for someone else to tell me I was ready. The Christmas lights on my own house, the ones I finally put up this year, are simple. Just white lights along the porch railing, a wreath on the door, a tree visible through the front window. No chaos, no excess. Just enough to feel festive without trying too hard. And when I sit on my porch with Maple, watching snow fall over the lake, I feel something I never felt growing up in my mother's house full of competitive perfection. I feel content, not because I proved something to them, but because I proved something to myself. I am enough. I have always been enough. And I built a life that reflects that truth. The woman who teased me at Christmas dinner, who asked when I would settle down, who held my sister's achievements over my head like a standard I could never reach, she knows now. I already settled down. I just did it on my own terms, in my own time, without inviting anyone who doubted me to watch. And when I smiled at that dinner table, when I held my secret close while they judged me from their pedestals, I wasn't being petty or vengeful. I was being patient. Because I knew something they didn't. Success doesn't always look the way people expect it to. Happiness doesn't always follow the timeline society dictates. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is live your truth quietly until the moment comes when silence no longer serves you. That moment came at a housewarming party for a house my sister could barely afford, surrounded by people who thought they knew the story of who I was. And I rewrote that story with 5 simple words. I already bought a house. Everything after that. That was just people adjusting to a truth that had always existed, whether they knew it or not. I didn't win some grand revenge. I just stopped letting them tell me I was losing, and that made all the difference.